Hey guys, Matt here. Patrick's been working on building an engine, so I thought I would work on a little bit different project too. So as we might have mentioned before, both me and Patrick actually reload a lot of our ammunition. Definitely not all of it, but a good portion of it. That being said, I thought I would give y'all kind of just a basic tour on how to reload ammunition from start to finish. So I've got 10 rounds of 6.5 Creedmoor. I've got more going on, but I've got 10 rounds of 6.5 Creedmoor that you're going to see from basically start to finish. I'm not going to go into some exact details. I'm not going to bring load measurements or anything like that. It's basically just to let you know what kind of work goes into it, so maybe you can decide if you want to do it as well. Because it's not like it's, oh, I'm just going to put some, clean these up, put some powder in them, put a, projectile on it, and it's ready to go. There's actually quite a bit more to it. These particular 6.5 that I'm going to be doing are in all technicality for Casey's gun. I'm going to build a load for Casey's gun. But again, it's just, I'm getting you through the whole process. So I'm going to start with, here's everything. So I've actually got a Lyman 8 turret press. This is actually, even though it doesn't look like it, it's still technically only a single stage press. It only does one thing, and I have to manually turn it if I want to do something different. I do have multiple dies in here. I have my 6.5, my 308, and my 5.7 all on here now. But again, I can only do one thing at a time. Only one thing happens as I pull this lever. That said, we may get around to seeing Patrick's stuff. Patrick actually has 2 progressive presses. One of them is 9mm and one of them is 223. So we can show you the difference between the two and basically give you a better decision on if you wanting to getting into it. So that said, I like doing a lot of my stuff on especially my precision stuff. All my precision stuff is for sure done on a single stage press. So anywho, let me run these 10 down and we'll go from there. Remember, before you put them in the press, you should always lube your cases, especially rifle cases. So what I just did, and I just realized this. So I'm taking a completely spent case. It's been fired. There's no projectile. It's dirty. It's everything else. And I've basically just run it through to get the D-primer pressed out. That is all this step did, was press the D-primer out. I lied. It actually forms the neck. So once it's fired, some of these tend to expand a little bit. What this does is this reforms the neck to where it's supposed to be. So after this, I'm going to wipe all the lube off of. I'm going to wipe as much lube off of them as I can. I've got just a dirty towel here, and I get some of the lube off. That way there we go. The media doesn't collect all that. So after that, I'm going to throw it into my tumbler, and then I'm going to tumble these for the next, 3 to 5 hours, depending on how long I forget it. It may or may not go for 8 hours. Me and Patrick have done it before, and we ran some 223. I think they lasted in there for 18 hours before we remembered them, or actually before Patrick remembered them. So, anywho, I'm going to get these to tumbling, and then I will be back when they're done tumbling, and I'll show you once I don't have to sort these, but we'll get them out, and I'll show you what they look like. All right, guys. So, it's tumbled for just shy of 3 hours, or right around 3 hours. You can let it tumble for as long as you want it to. Typically, the longer it tumbles, the shinier it gets, but for the most part, it doesn't bother me, as long as it's clean. So I've got my little media separator. I pour all the media as well as the brass, and it all goes into the bucket and it catches it there. So we'll do that here in a second. So I do want to interject here. I'm making precision rounds right now. So all these are once fired through Casey's 6.5, her Ruger Precision. They hardly touched the ground. They went from the gun to my extra little box and all that stuff. So they're not dirty. They're not really dirty. That's why I deprimed them first before I threw them in there the first time. I have some 223 in there as well. I'm tumbling from another set from earlier. It only needed a couple hours because I just got through trimming it up. But just so you know, I typically, if it's range brass or brass that's set out for a while or something like that, that is the very, very first thing I do is I tumble it for a minimum of 4 to 5 hours. And that's like all this dirty stuff. So it's just like super dirty, rusty, oxidized, whatever it is you want to call it. Range brass I will typically tumble first before I even deprime it. Then once I deprime it, we'll do all the rest of it, and then I'll actually tumble it again. But again, we'll get to that. And there you have it, a bunch of shiny brass. So we're going to get all this separated. Like I said, there's some 223 and actually there's some 300 in there as well. But I'm going to get all that separated real quick and I'll pull my tin back out so that we can get back to it. All right, guys. All right, guys, I just want to show you this real quick. So I actually decided to tumble a whole nother set. So this is many hours later, but I have another set. And this is a lot of my range brass. There's literally different ones. This is the system that I've actually come up with. I have several different buckets, one for each caliber. I'll drop, as I pull them out, and I'll drop them in there. I have 9, 223, and 300 blackout in this particular one. This was range brass that I tumbled for right around 5.5 hours, and now I'm just separating it out, and from here, it's ready to be processed. All right, guys, here we are at the next step. So I've had them tumbled. They're all good and clean. They're all... Well, I say good and clean. Anywho, so our next step is actually more or less the processing of the brass. I've got the Franklin Arsenal case trim and prep center. It does everything that I need in order to actually prep the case. So I already have my trim set, my trim depth set, and then the rest is cleaning off the primer pocket because the primer pocket's pretty dirty in there. So it'll clean that and kind of shape it out. I don't have the right one to ream it or take out military crimps, but all these brass that I have don't have them, so I'm not as worried about them. But I'm going to trim. Once it's trimmed, I'm actually going to chamfer it, so it'll put like a little bevel on the inside, and then I'll deburr all of it, and then that piece is done. It'll go in my bucket, and we'll go on to the next step. So I'm going to run these. All right, and just like that, these cases are ready. So I know it's harder to see, but the primer pocket's a lot cleaner. It should be a lot more uniformed. I've trimmed them down to where they're all identical, and then chamfered and deburred it. So I do go back and I do check every once in a while, make sure that everything fits within tolerances, make sure that my deal hasn't moved, anything like that. So that's the processing in a nutshell. Again, that's just 10 of them. Once you start doing 100, 200, 1,000 at a time, it really starts to wear on your hand. I will tell you that straight up. There are different tools that you could get. Some are easier than others. This one fit into my budget. I still have to hold it and I press it and everything else. I mean, if it's within your budget, Dylan actually makes a one that just like a progressive press. Every time you pull it, it runs it through it and it deprimes it. It cleans the primer. The next one cleans the primer pocket. The next one will actually trim it, chamfer it, and deburr it all at the same time. It's a nice little system. And then it kicks out basically a processed shell. It's nice and all, but the setup, I want to say, is probably just over $1,000. So unless you're doing a lot of shells, that's a lot of money. So anywho, once I got my shells processed, I actually like to throw them in the tumbler one more time. This time only for about 30 minutes, maybe an hour at best. And the reasoning for that is I actually like to run it through there since I've already cleaned the primer pocket, make sure all of it's off. I want to make sure all the little stuff that is on here is off the casings. I make sure that the necks are completely clean and everything else. So it's really just kind of a backup, kind of to make sure that the last little bit of stuff is off before we prime them and then put the powder in them. So I'm going to run that for about 30 minutes and then we'll be back and we'll start putting some primers in. Before I get this started, something else I forgot to mention. Like I said, I'm making precision cases. These are for a precision rifle for precision shooting. But that it requires just a few extra steps. But that being said, say you just want to reload 9mm or 45 or 40 or something like that. Those are all straight wall cased. They actually don't have a neck on them. It's just a straight walled case. With those, you don't actually trim, you don't deburr or chamfer. You actually just clean the primer pocket and then you can put the primer in it. That said, things like 223 or hell, I can't think of any. Just a range round, something that still does have a neck, but it's not necessarily for accuracy, more for bulk. You're doing a lot more of them. You actually don't have to trim those either. You can if you want. Again, it helps with the accuracy, but if you just go in here, clean the primer pocket, chamfer it and deburr it, you're done with that one. Move on to the next one. So as you're watching this, I'm doing precision rounds, which actually take a few more steps than say, oh, I'm just going to make a whole bunch of 9mm just so I have something to go shoot. So keep that in mind as you're watching this. If you do want to do something simpler, there is less steps to it. All right, guys, welcome back. So we've tumbled them for, I think it was like 45 minutes this time. I got them all out. This is the point in time where I will inspect them because we're fixing to start putting everything together. So just want to make sure that the flash hole is clean because a lot of that media will get stuck in that flash hole right there. So just have a little pick, clean it out. And then just overall inspect the body. Make sure you don't have any dents. Make sure your neck looks good. There's no cracks. I mean, I'll do this the whole time, but this is my final inspection because I know they're fixing to be used. And I also make sure that no damage was taken during either the tumbling or sorting the media or anything like that. So just in general, I just make sure that they're all good, clean, and overall good looking condition. All right, there's all of them. So that's all of them. They're all clean. They actually all look really good. None of them are cracked. None of them are dented. Again, these don't even hardly touch the ground. All of these 6.5s are actually from my wife's rifles. So they pop out, they land on the table, and we put them right back into our little boxes. So anywho, at this point, we prime them. There's many different ways of priming them. I have a little hand primer. I like to use it. It makes things just a little bit easier. There's a lot of presses that will do, actually most every press will do priming of some sort. Even my big one back here will do it. It's just a lot more of a pain in the butt. So all you do is you stick it in there. This one automatically feeds. You just stick it in there, push the handle, and there we go. We got primers in it. I try to check each one, make sure they have good depth. I check before I put it in there to make sure it's not upside down. So, because I've lost many a good primers, and they're expensive these days. But I've lost many a primers just trying to, you know, go too quick. All right, and there you have it. That was easy enough. That's all 10 of these primed. So the next step is actually getting powder in them and getting a projectile on them, which I will do here shortly. I'm going to get everything else set up, and I'll show you how that's done. All right, guys. You can't see me very well, but I'm just trying to show you the stuff. So we've got everything cleaned. We've got everything primed. Everything looks great. So now we're to the point of loading. Now, in this particular one, I'm actually just building a load for Casey's, like figuring out which powder is going to be the best. So I'm making 4 of each of grain weights that I decided. Then I'll go out and shoot them just to see which one's the most accurate. Different pressures can cause different results. So we're going to try several different ones. I'm not going to go specifically into numbers. But this is the loading part of it. So I'll have powder that I've got a powder, I've got a scale, I've even got a trickle charger. So that way I can get my exact grain weights, and then I fill them into the casings. And then from here, we'll put a projectile on them. So I'm going to work on a few of these, and then we're going to speed through some of it, and then I'll show you the putting the projectile on it. This part is very meticulous. So again, this video is more to just see if you even want to do the work to reload. This isn't, I'm not giving any specific numbers. I'm not doing anything specific for that. This is just a general overview to see if you even want to start reloading. So there's at least several of them. I'm not going to bore you with the rest of them. I'm going to finish loading these, and then I'll show you putting projectiles on. All right, guys. So here we are. I've got all my powder charges in there, and everything's ready. So super, super simple at this point. Slide that in. I put a projectile on it, and I already have everything measured out. I keep a lot of my stuff already set. You press it down, and there it is. That's what it looks like. I have my calipers all set and ready. Actually, might need to be adjusted just a smidge. But other than that, that one looks good. Let's see what the next one shows. So, and there's different ways to adjust all of this just to make sure that it fits. If you like these videos, then we can definitely do more of them. Maybe different ways of adjusting dies, different ways of getting dies set. I don't think we'll go over too many powder charges and whatnot, because I don't necessarily want to be responsible for you blowing yourself up when you go by my powder charge because you're using a different gun or a different powder or something like that. So we'll see, because if you use the same charge on a different powder, you're likely to get a way different result, which could result in a major problem. So, but like I said, all of mine are designed for precision, so I really try to measure each one. If all of them look really, really good, I may go one or two without measuring, but for the most part, I actually measure all mine. If I'm doing a 223 or a 9mm, I will typically measure maybe every 10th one. Oops, sorry guys. Well, there it is, guys. There's, well, the 10 that turned into 20 just because I was making a load. But there it is. There is the full journey of a spent brass case to a new round. And this is my little area that I do it in right now. That said, if you like what you see, like, subscribe, give us a comment. If there's something else you want to see, if there's something more you want to see, more in depth, there's definitely things that we can do along with this or anything else that you see. We're here to entertain you guys and maybe even hopefully help you learn something. So again, like I said, if you can help out us little guys, like and subscribe. Get us bigger. We can definitely do more. But that being said, like I said, this is the full journey. So I'm going to be out of here for this one, and we will see y'all next Friday. Hopefully me and Patrick will have something together. So, bye guys.